Welcome back. We're excited to share with you kind of what's been going on these last couple of years. We've really been working on focusing on getting our ECN2 stills lab up so that you can shoot motion picture film in your stills camera. Now there's a lab in Germany that's doing it, and we're using the same model, processing in ECN2 chemicals and then scanning on our motion picture scanner. So today we're just going to walk through kind of the steps that we take to get your images to you. All right, so we start with, essentially we're just gonna pull the leader out of here, the tail, and then we'll use a twin check like most labs do. We'll just put a twin check number here that's associated with your order. So what we're gonna do is kind of go through this process, jump into the dark bag, throw these two rolls onto the reels, and then we'll get to processing. We have these extenders, essentially, that allow us to put a bunch of these reels on the Jobo at one time. So we can get a lot more done in one order or one run. But for now, we're just gonna do two for this purpose. And everything goes in the bag. Alrighty. This is the pre-bath, which just essentially softens anti-halation backing known as rem-jet. I believe rem-jet comes from actually using jets to get it off, which we're not doing that here. So we're gonna soften it, then we're gonna wash as much of it off as we can, and then as we finish the entire process, we will actually use pec pad and some final rinse and get the rest of it off at the end. So this only goes in for about 10 seconds. I don't really time this because I don't think it's super crucial that I mean, you can let it go a little longer, and that's fine. So at this point, I'm just gonna go ahead and raise the water level in the reservoir to start to heat the tank up. Also, our water's 110-ish degrees, which is really where you want it to be. That's over 10 seconds, but we're gonna go ahead, put it back in the bottle. This is relatively fresh, like 3 days old. So we can get quite a bit of use out of this. And for the Jobo users, when I'm removing the rem-jet, I just crank this thing up, you know, almost full blast and just really get the water violently moving through it. That kind of emulates the jets a little bit that they have in a linear lab, a linear processor. So you'll see as this is, the water is essentially removing the rem-jet that the pre-bath has softened up. And you'll see it as we dump it out. It's pretty, it's entertaining every time. So the bulk of the rem-jet comes out with the very first wash. We're gonna go ahead and wash it a few more times. That's one of the things we want to do is try to keep any of the rem-jet out of the developer. You want to keep your developer nice and clean as much as you can. So wash number 2 has a little bit more rem-jet in it. You notice the water's not clear. We essentially just want to run this. We're going to run water through it until it's clear. And with 2 rolls of film, it's just, there's not a ton of rem-jet. But when you get, you know, 5, 8, 11, there is a lot of rem-jet that comes out of this thing. So it takes a lot of washes. So we just continue to wash until it's cleared up, and then we move on to the developer. So we use the QWD powder kits, which are really great. They're really good kits, really great results. As we continue to scale and we continue to do more film at a time, we've now moved to the Kodak liquid chemicals that they use in linear labs. So essentially it's 20-liter bottles of, you know, raw concentrated chemistry that we've got the dilution rates down and everything. And so we're using the same stuff that Kodak would use in their labs, in our lab, which is really, it's given us, the quality control is just next level because we're not constantly mixing powders and we can replenish. So we actually replenish the developer at a rate that they replenish in a linear lab. So after X amount of rolls, X amount of feet is what we go by. We go ahead and replenish with, let's say, 300 milliliters. We dump 300 milliliters out. We put 300 milliliters of replenisher back in. We're in control. We know our developer's good. So we're at 105 degrees right now. What I shoot for is about 107. And then kind of let it, as soon as it drops down to 106, I go ahead and put it in, and we'll run the dev for 3 minutes. We're completely clear, no rem-jet, no black, no base color. So we're ready to move on to the developer. As soon as it's at 106 degrees, we'll get it in. 3 minutes. Okay, our 3 minutes is up. The dev goes back in the bottle. Like I said, we replenish, so we're gonna go back into the bottle, and after, you know, the amount of footage that we've determined we need to replenish and at what rate, we do that. Okay, next up is the stop bath. 30 seconds, stop bath comes out, goes back into the working chemical bottle. At this point, I am going to lower the water. I want the water out of the reservoir here because the bleach process is, again, done at 80 degrees, like the pre-bath. So these two chemicals are separated from the rest of them. So what we do is we try to get the tank, the temperature of the tank lowered back down to 80 degrees-ish. So we use room temp water, 78, 80 degrees, to rinse the stop bath. And then the next thing we'll go in with is the 80-degree bleach. This is another 3-minute process here with the bleach. 3 minutes. Our fixer is going to be the next step in the process after we rinse the bleach off. The fix in a linear lab, the fix is 100 degrees, so we try to do our best to get as close to right on. Yeah, not bad. We kind of hold that at 100 degrees. It seems like a pain to go back and forth, you know, with the different temperatures, but if we're offering a product that is as close as you can get to a linear process with ECN2, we want to just be within their spec on everything, as close as we can get. We found that this gives us a really, really amazing product, so we're happy with it. Again, bleach goes back in the bottle. All right, that's our 4th rinse. Water's clear. So we are going to go in with our fixer, which is a 2-minute long process. Fixer's all done. And in fact, the bleach and the fix can be done in the light. In a linear machine, it actually has a clear top that you can see the film, and not until after it's fixed do you actually have an image on the film itself. It's kind of wild. What we do here is we're just gonna rinse it a couple times, and then I go stick it under the sink and let it run for 5 minutes or so. That way we're not standing here taking up the Jobo. If we have a lot of orders going, we're gonna have like a bunch of these tanks, you know, put together, a bunch of film in them, all marked, sitting up here ready to go. So the next thing you want to do is pre-bath, and you don't want to have, you know, your rinse taking over your system. So, I mean, at some point, you know, it would be nice to have another Jobo, 2 or 3 with a few technicians. I feel like the demand for ECN2 is only going to rise when you have Portra at 18 or 20 bucks, whatever it is. I don't shoot a lot of C41 because I have a ton of ECN2. And we're selling it for $12 a cartridge right now. So, I mean, if you go buy film from us, it's $6 cheaper than Portra. And you can send it back through the lab and have it processed correctly and scanned correctly. In my opinion, should be scanned on a motion picture scanner. Images, looking good. We basically look for color a lot of the time, you know. You're just looking for the base color. This is 5219, so I know what that base color looks like. It's kind of, we set it up against our control strips that we use. That just kind of makes sure that we're in control of the whole process, and that your negatives are going to come back the way that you would expect them to come back every single time. That's the biggest thing about a lab, is consistency. I'm going to go run this underwater. All right, so at this point, we're all rinsed up. It's totally clear. We're going into distilled water. This is just really going to ensure that we don't have any water spots on our negs when they're drying. So I go into distilled water for both of them, just to kind of rinse the hard water off. This is the ECN2 final rinse. It's essentially photo flow, really. I don't like to get my reels in the final rinse, so I just kind of take the film off of there, do one roll at a time. This is a little bit of a tedious process, and one of the reasons why people don't like dealing with ECN2, because it has rem-jet, and rem-jet can be a pain. So some 4th of July action going on. So you notice I've got a PEC pad, which this is, this PEC pads are made to handle negatives. They will not scratch your negatives. And our first step here is just to kind of grab the residual rim jet and make sure that by the time we're done, and you'll be able to see, like you can see this has got a little bit of rim jet on it, that black. But you notice that there's just like ever so slightly, there's just a little bit of rim jet left on there. And we want to make sure that all of that's off because we do not want it drying on our film. And this is essentially what the jets would be doing in a linear lab. That's what we're doing right here. We just do it at the end because you can't take it out into the light until, you know, you're done with the stop bath at least. So this will be my last. We're all clean. And so those negatives are super, super clean. Like I said before, the base looks really nice. The base color looks like 5219. And these are ready to hang and dry. So we made kind of a little makeshift. This is actually like an indoor grow room. Insert weed joke here. And we basically turned it into a film dryer. We throw our negatives in here, and I have a heater, which is for a portable laundry dryer. So I bought it off of Amazon, and it raises the temperature to 115 or so degrees in here. And we just make sure that this stays closed so we don't have any dust flying around in there. And some people would say that having moving air is bad, but we have gotten some really, really good results. So I'm not super worried about it. And they take about 10 minutes to dry, and they're ready to go to the scanner. All right, second roll going into the final rinse. I just keep this distilled water around because I get all the rim jet off in the final rinse, or sorry, in the distilled water rather than the final rinse. So this is kind of our current process. This is how we're doing it right now. Essentially what we're going to do is we're just going to splice these rolls onto our master roll. All of the film that you see on here right now in this roll is all ours at the lab. If I process your film, I'm going to sleeve it and send it back to you. I don't cut it. I just sleeve it as one long roll, and I send it back to you. There's twin check 171 and then 170. Just gonna find our first frame. There it is. The rest of this process is done on the computer. Many of you have probably seen the Blackmagic Cintel video that I did years ago. This is essentially the rest of this process right here. The scanning process is going to be done in Resolve, so this may look familiar to you. This is the head, the first frame. You'll notice that it's a 4-perf scanner, so you're going to get 4 perfs at a time. So here's the right half of the image, and there's the left half of the image. So after we get this process done, scanned, and exported as a TIFF, we will use some stitching software to stitch the two images together. So what we need to do is find the final image in here. Okay, so this is post-stitch. I just picked 3 images off of this roll. They're not like crazy inspiring. We're just shooting off some fireworks on the 4th of July. It was kind of stormy, so it's a little gray and flat, but this is the log scan, and then my grade, which again, like I kind of preach this to everybody, that you can do whatever you want with these images, which is the reason why we like to give you the log scan, because you know, at other labs, and this isn't bad, not trashing on other labs, but when someone throws your film through an Aritsu, they get to make creative decisions about your film on the fly because they're scanning it. So, you know, they're taking away magenta, or they're, you know, adding yellow or whatever it is. They're making some creative decisions based on their taste, which is cool. That's awesome. And those people have been doing it for a very long time, and they're very good at it. when it comes to delivering images from Midwest Film Co. We're kind of erring on the side of, give it to you with all the information, and then you can do with it what you will. Now, that's not to say that we're not working on profiles, because I'm working with a couple of colorists to come up with some profiles. This is the log scan that you would get. And then, that's my interpretation of the image. Looking at it, like always, looking at it now, there's probably a little bit too magenta in the highlights, which it's endless. You could deal with that. Until you're blue in the face, you could push the color around. Here's a second image. Nice little rainbow on the right. We had a storm fly through there. And, here's my interpretation of that. It's got more green in the highlights. So if we go back to this image, it's a little bit more magenta, and then that's got a little more green. Last one is just a photo in the next morning. And here's the grade of that. But all that to say is that these are the images that you're going to be getting, starting with the log scans and then pushing those around as you see fit. And this is essentially our process. Head over to MidwestFilmCo.com. You can buy film, processing, and scanning. We're super excited to see your images, and we'll see you next time.